In the 1990s, all the way up to the 2000s, Los Angeles, it was a literal war zone.
To the outside, untrained eye, it looks like just chaos, crazy. But to us, we know how we got to this point. The death of a brother is enough to motivate to kill.
When it came to gangs and factions in the area.
In my opinion, you and I can be standing out talking, just talking, and a car is subject to drive by and blow us away.
Yeah, shootouts, turf battles, set up murders. The city had all that and a lot more going on.
How many of them have you gotten revenge for?
All of them. Just say everybody up there has been avenged. You gotta understand, the system doesn't work for us. When one of our people dies, police don't give a you know? They make a report, scoop the body up, and he's gone to the morgue. They like, yeah, one less off the street.
And when it comes to the Athens Park Bloods, they're definitely no exception. With an intense situation planned out in 2000. After being shot by Pocket Hood Crip members, Athens Park Blood member David Greer asked fellow gang member Juan Antoine Johnson to help him retrieve a gun so he could go on a mission for revenge. A couple days later, on March 11th of 2000, accompanied by Brian, also known as K-Down from Athens Park Bloods, they picked up a .45 caliber handgun and some bullets for K-Down's .38 caliber handgun. After that, the three drove towards Wilmington Street in Compton, California. Johnson drove, Greer sat in the front seat, armed with the .45 caliber handgun, and K-Down, he was in the back seat, armed with his .38 caliber handgun. Meanwhile, Darnell Williams and LaToya Powers were walking and talking to each other on Wilmington near 132nd Street. And when a couple got to the middle of the block, Johnson pulls up to him and Greer yelled, "F crabs," which is a term disrespectful to the Crips. And right after that, Greer and K-Down pulled out their handguns and fired multiple shots at Williams and Powers. The Athens Park members fired a total of 5 shots at the two, seriously injuring Williams and unfortunately taking Powers' life in the process.
It's a lot of nonsense just to do what the hell they want to do, which is kill and terrorize the streets.
After the shooting, a witness provided a partial license plate number and a description of the shooter's car. The next morning, the police detained and arrested Johnson, who was driving a vehicle matching the plate number and the description. And after waiving his Miranda rights, Johnson, he confessed to participating in a drive-by shooting. And he later showed police where the gun was hidden. But even with his statements and confession, the court sentenced Johnson to a term of 90 years to life in prison. That situation, it gives a lot of insight into the culture of Los Angeles. Most gangs have at least one member who have told or given statements while being in the gang. But on the other end of the token, most gangs are always looking to plot against or get revenge on their enemies in order to maintain respect in the streets and establish dominance over their enemies and rivals. But when it comes to the case of the Athens Park Bloods, these guys, they have a history of being on a whole nother level.
Babyface he was shot with a AK in a car.
The graffiti tracks the vicious cycle of murder and retaliation. Bone insists that's the only way to settle these decade-long feuds.
How many of them have you gotten revenge for?
All of them.
Yeah, all-out turf wars that involve brutal murders, setups and assassinations, major drug operations that made a lot of the members rich and targeted by law enforcement officers, and prominent members put fear into the faces of a lot of their enemies. The Athens Park Bloods have all that and a lot more attached to their history. Murder, mayhem, and money. This is the nature of this game. This is their means of operation. This is the Athens Park Bloods. Today, we're addressing this gang's history, some storylines that include an intense gang war with the East Coast Crips, and also showing some clips of some prominent members while they answer some important questions about the gang and the community. And a lot more of the crazy situations as we address this gang. Yeah. All right. Welcome to Cali's Most Dangerous. Let's get into it.
The beefed-up patrol was sparked by one of the bloodiest shooting sprees in the city's history.
The violence was shocking. 1 dead, 11 wounded in a gang drive-by shooting Friday night.
Despite the crackdown, the violence continued last night. 5 people were wounded in drive-by shootings.
But with 70,000 gang members, the police are outnumbered.
History, of the Athens Park Bloods. Bitches, hoes, gangs, cash, and fly clothes. Yeah, that's been the motto of pretty much all young members who are born in the rough parts of LA, especially when it comes to gangs. That's because Los Angeles, it's considered the birthplace of a lot of gangs throughout not only California, but around the nation as well. Most of these gangs have a similar means of starting up, but when it comes to the Athens Park Bloods, their history is a little different. During the 1960s, prior to the Athens Park Bloods, the Black Cobras were the dominant group in the neighborhood, which included guys like Taboo, Cowboy, Tony Wright, and Michael Bell. Originally, the Athens Park Boys, they found friendship through sports at the park, but their neighborhood started to make a shift once younger groups start to hang around the area.
Like them, I feel like these are my people. I'm with them. So from that day, I knew I was from Athens Park. I knew I was a Blood, and I knew the rest.
One particular faction included a group of teenagers who often hung out at Athens Park. This group had already been friends in the 60s, but started officially in the 70s as the Athens Park Boys, before the Crips and Blood identities took form in the early 1970s. At first, these guys were known for just hanging out at Athens Park, but the AP Boys quickly gained notoriety in the Athens Park neighborhood, and their reputation for throwing wild parties and selling drugs made them popular among local youth. However, as their criminal activities expanded and they began to engage in more violent behavior, their reputation started to change. And this was before they even picked up the Blood identity. Yet fights, stabbings, and the Athens Parks were known for jacking. If you got caught lacking, they were quickly with the action. And once again, this was before there was Bloods, with some suggestion that the Athens Park Bloods were formed in 1969 prior to Raymond Washington forming the first Crip gang on the east side of Los Angeles. In fact, a Reddit user commented that the APs was one of the only gangs to successfully stand up to Tookie Williams and the Crips bullying tactics back in the days. But y'all let me know in the comments if this is true or not. If y'all got any stories about it, let me know in the comments as well. Anyways, before long, the AP Boys began to be seen as a gang, and their influence in the community grew as they gained control of more territory and started to use force to maintain their position.
Young kids, some of them don't even have a chance. It's not even a door for them to even make it through. Some of them won't even see tomorrow. It's tough.
And by the early 1970s, the AP Boys officially became the Athens Park Bloods. And from the foundation, these guys have been a tight-knit organization with a strict hierarchy, with the most senior members holding a great deal of power and influence over the young members. This has allowed the gang to maintain its dominance in many areas of the city. Because the Athens Park Bloods have been known to be involved in a wide range of criminal activities, including drug trafficking, robbery, extortion, and murder, they've been known to be responsible for numerous shootings and other violent incidents throughout the city, and have a reputation for being highly dangerous and unpredictable. These activities have been seen since the foundation of the gang, and have carried on to this very day. Yeah, this gang is known to be ruthless, with a big example of this playing out in 2017.
Often, drive-by shootings are a form of gang initiation. The gangs are beefing up their firepower, often with stolen weapons. Police, too, are equipping themselves with semi-automatic weapons for raids which have uncovered caches of assault rifles, semi-automatic, and automatic firearms.
At around 4:45 p.m. on April 23rd of 2017, Kahit Grant was walking in Los Angeles when a man in a car pulls up and stops alongside him and asks, "Where you from, cuz?" Grant, he doesn't respond, but instead turns away from the car and begins to run away. But before he can get a couple feet away, one of the men shot Grant in the back before the car drives away. Here's the thing, Grant knew what was about to play out. He was a well-known Athens Park Blood member known as Popeye. So once he seen a car filled with Crips, he immediately knew something was up. The shooting occurred very close to 1300 South San Pedro Street, an apartment complex commonly referred to as the Villas. And these apartments are a known hangout for the Athens Park Blood members and a closely allied gang known as the Miller Gangster Bloods. Grant used his phone to call for an ambulance, Before ambulance personnel arrived, a bystander Grant supposedly did not know stopped to assist and drove Grant to the hospital. Meanwhile, at 4:45 that same day, Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department Detective Gregory Richardson arrived at 129th Street in San Pedro in response to a call regarding the shooting. An individual at the scene told him that a bystander had taken the victim to the hospital. So Detective Richardson went to the hospital to speak with Grant. But Grant was uncooperative and didn't identify the person who shot him. At this point, knowing Grant's gang affiliation and the nature of how the shooting played out, the detective assumed that a retaliation shooting was right around the corner. He was right on point with his assumption. A little later, at around 5:04 p.m., Hill texted someone and said his little cousin Popeye had been shot and that he intended to go to the APs, which is an acronym for Athens Park, but is also used to refer to the villas. The person then advised Hill to be safe and watch his surroundings. Now fast forward to later that day. Various surveillance cameras at the villas recorded Athens Park Blood members gathering in the parking lot shortly after Grant was shot. The video showed gang members mingling with several other known Athens Park members and members from other blood gangs, including Thomas Speed and Davion McKinley. Speed, who was an Athens Park member, was roughly 10 years older than Hill, who was 20. Armstead, who was 24, and Mixon, who was 19, and had the level of seniority to organize the shooting. Meanwhile, Los Angeles Police Department officer Manuel Armeda, who was assigned to monitor Athens Park and Miller's gangsters, became aware of Grant's shooting after seeing gang members discussing it on social media, and after that, Officer Armeda and his partner went to the villas to talk to the gang members congregating there, gather information about Grant's shooting, and attempt to discourage a retaliation shooting. But that attempt, it was futile. The Athens Park Blood members had their mind made up, and they were out for blood. At 8:57 that same night, Hill, he left the villas in a black Audi. McKinley was driving and Hill was in the back seat. The four-door Audi had distinctive features, including that when its doors were open, round lights were projected on the ground. Also, at around 9:17 p.m., Armstead and Mixon left the villas in a white Cadillac STS, driven by Speed, and immediately behind a white Cadillac was a dark blue Cadillac driven by another gang member. Meanwhile, Aaron Roseborough and his cousin Shakari Chambers were walking in front of Roseborough's townhouse in Los Angeles. Neither Roseborough nor Chambers were involved in any gangs. However, they were young and black. Roseborough, he was wearing a Yankees baseball cap, which was commonly worn by members of the East Coast Crips and members of the neighborhood Crip car. The townhouse, it was also on a residential street that had not been a site of gang activity for several years, but it was in a territory claimed by the East Coast Crips. At 9:39 p.m., the white Cadillac STS drove past the street. At 9:42 p.m., Hill, now driving an Audi, pulled up alongside the two victims and stopped. Armstead and Mixon then exited the Audi and immediately started firing at the two. Mixon, who was holding a rifle, fired numerous rounds, striking Roseborough 5 times and Chambers 4 times. And Armstead, who was holding a handgun, fired a single shot into a living room townhouse before his gun jammed and he attempted to clear the jam. And right after the shots, Armstead and Mixon, they re-entered the Audi and Hill drove away. Chambers sadly died immediately, and Roseborough unfortunately died a few minutes later. The shooting was videotaped by surveillance cameras in the area, but the shooter's face couldn't be seen because their faces were covered by hoodies. However, they were still identifiable by body types and clothing. Mixon, he was dressed the same as earlier, including the pants with the patches. Armstead, he was also dressed the same as before. In addition, Hill's long sleeves and dark hat were clearly visible in the car, and lastly, the Audi's distinctive round lights that were projected on the ground when the shooters opened the door to commit the murders. After the murders, the members went on a run, but eventually, all of them were caught and arrested. Mixon was arrested on April 28, 2017, and participated in a recorded interview with Detective Samuel Morello and Sarah Collian later that day. He said he left the villas in a white Cadillac and was dropped off so he can get inside the Audi. claiming he was directed to drive the car. When asked why he committed the shooting, Manson asked, "Is that a rhetorical question?" and then answered, "It's because of grand shooting." Also, a couple weeks later, on May 2nd of 2017, Hill was arrested and participated in a recorded interview with the same detectives. During the interview, Hill was shown a video taken in the villas before the murders, and he identified himself as a person wearing a backpack and changing his shoes. He said he got in a car with the others, went to a location on Miller Street, and socialized for roughly 30 minutes. But the detectives, they were playing ball. Murillo commented on how upset he was that the older gang members would put a person like Hill in that situation. And he told Hill that those senior members were free and enjoying themselves while he was in custody. Hill then said that he was frightened that if he cooperated with police, he would be attacked in jail, and explained that his brother was currently in jail and had told him how dangerous it was. After being shown a video of the Audi returning to the villas, Hill described parking a car out of sight of the cameras. Hill briefly used ambiguous language, like "I believe I parked it, yeah," but then confirmed that he had parked and exited the Audi. But he did not want to identify the men he was walking with. He did, however, claim that he drove the Audi to the villas from Medler Street. Detective Morello then explained that he knew Hill was lying about merely driving the Audi from Medler Street to the villas, saying that although he knew Hill wasn't one of the shooters, he still wanted to know the nature of his involvement, whether he knew about the plan and whether he had been ordered to participate. Hill responded, "I was ordered to do so. I was pushed to do it." A couple months after that arrest, on July 3rd of 2007, Armstead was arrested in Las Vegas. When stopped, he gave a fake name and presented a driver's license, credit card, and social security card in that fake name. Prior to the arrest, Armstead, he posted on social media that it was stressful being on the run. Lastly, during the trial, Officer Armeda testified that respect was very important to gang members, and it was essentially required for a gang to take violent revenge upon being attacked by rivals, especially if that attack occurred in their own territory. Also saying that although every gang member was required to commit crimes on the behalf of the gang, only roughly 10% participated in crimes as violent as drive-by shootings. As to such shootings, a member might volunteer, but would be directed or authorized to do so only if trusted to carry it out. When directed to commit a crime, a gang member risks serious injury from his own fellow gang members if he refused to carry out the assignment. Also, a gang member that cooperated with the police risks being harmed or killed by other gang members. The evidence was definitely stacked against the Athens Park gang member. But Armstead, he only dug himself in a deeper hole when he got into a back and forth with some of the jury. For example, during the prosecutor's closing statement, it became apparent to counsel for Armstead because he was about to make an outburst, which is exactly what he did, as he directed profanity to the prosecutors and to the jury, while also saying that he no longer wanted to be in the courtroom, and confessed to committing the murders, saying, "Athens Park Bloods, we did that. So what? F these people. F all y'all." In the end, Armstead and Mixon were each sentenced to 70 years to life in prison, plus 2 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole. And Hill, he was sentenced to 50 years in life in prison, plus 2 consecutive terms of life without the possibility of parole. Man, no fucks given was the first thing I thought after reading this. The Athens Park Bloods definitely had their mind made up when it came to revenge. But then again, that's the nature of these guys. You touch one of theirs, and they're definitely coming back for yours. Either way, rest in peace to Chambers and Roseboro. Look, that situation is damn near nothing compared to the other stories I found these guys. But before we can address all that, we have to discuss a couple more things about the Athens Park Bloods.
These guys think they're warriors out here. And much like soldiers or warriors, they'll protect their territories.
Danger rating of the Athens Park Bloods. The Athens Park Bloods are are going to receive a danger rating of a 9.5 out of 10. Based off of the gang's long history of gang wars, known killers from the gang, and headlines that this gang is known for. And also, a lot of other factors. Yeah, the Athens niggas is no jokes. They definitely known for doing the most. I tell you to test them, but it's really no hope. Bars, nigga. Nah, that's just my score though. Y'all let me know in the comments what y'all think. Did I go too low or did I go too high? Let's have a conversation about it. Yeah, but you guys heard a few situations and stories, but like I already said, that's only a couple compared to what this gang is known for. With some of the stories been too graphic to put on YouTube. Before we can start to address each other's stories, it's essential that we get into who the Athens Park Bloods are.
Enough of the killing, enough of the terrorism, enough of the fear. Enough is enough.
Who are the Athens Park Bloods? The Athens Park Bloods are primarily an African-American street gang located on the west side of Rosewood, also known as Athens, around the Rosedale community region of Los Angeles, California, where their neighborhood stretches from Figueroa to Avalon Boulevard. With that being said, the Athens are one of the few gangs that have a west side and east side, within their singular turf from west of Main Street to Figueroa represents the west side of Athens Park, and the east of Main Street to Avalon is the east side. Speaking of area, quick story. It's 2007, my freshman year, at the tender age of 13, and me and my homies, we was already some thirsty niggas for the bitches. So every weekend, we definitely hit different spots, different parties, and just different popular spots for the youngin'. You feel me? Like that. This particular weekend, we ended up at a party between Main Street and Broadway. I think on like 126th Street, like that. And even as I'm thinking back on this story, like, nigga, we was fucking idiots. Like, nigga, you from Long Beach. What the is you doing all the way out here? Like, nigga, is you dumb? But was young. And some bitches posted out of your own aim, so niggas said, it, let's pop out. Anyways, we get to the party and bruh, it's bitches everywhere, nigga. I mean everywhere. They on the floor, every wall, every hall, bathroom. Man, it's on the roof. Smoking on some set it off shit. And they all ratchet as too, just how I like them.
Hey, you see that bitch over there? I see her. Now that's a lady.
And me and the homies was excited as too. So like some dogs, so we had a meal in some days. It was time to eat, bro. We paid our little $5 and damn near running to the house. When we first got in, it was a movie. Nigga, this was the J Smooth, Fantasy Boys, Pretty Ricky, up and down era. So it's motherfuckers down there on the floor. Like it's hot, shirts off, sweaty and all that. I can't make this up. You had to be there. It sound crazy, shit probably sound disgusting, but you had to be there. One of the best experiences of my life. Anyways, me and the homies, we enjoying ourselves too damn much and we failed to realize what was playing out in the background. So this was definitely a high school party, and the crazy part is in LA, these are often the most dangerous events to go to. But you know what? We still do that stupid shit. This particular party had a lot of bloods too. How I know? Nigga, the colors they had on, and of course the area. And these bloods, they ended up getting into it with a group at the party. Now I don't know if the other group had any gang affiliation or if they was Crips or whatever, but that didn't matter. Without giving any details, I don't want YouTube to flag me. Just know, them boys got their whooped, like bad, like real bad. Bad enough that we quietly grabbed our shit and we walked out the party. From the side, of course. We made sure we wasn't seen. We didn't want to be affiliated with them niggas at all. And nigga, I ain't been back over there since. Anyways, back to the area. With a decent sized area, they're composed of several cliques, but their main cliques are 124th Street and 127th Street. And as already mentioned, this gang, they've been around for over 4 decades, with history dating back to the 1970s. So they definitely have more than a few different headlines. Especially in the 1990s, after the LA riots brought a lot of light to the oppression a lot of the minorities faced at the time. On top of that, they have more than a few notable members.
Maybe this time we do gonna get some justice. And I heard the verdict, man. I was in the store and I watched a grown man cry with his little 7-year-old. He didn't say why he was crying, but I knew. I didn't ask him because I heard the word too.
Like Clee Sloan, also known as Bone, who's definitely been irreparable for over 3 decades. He's been in several interviews addressing gangs in Los Angeles, but also in recent years, he found his niche as an actor and gang consultant for several movies and television shows, including TNT's Southland, End of Watch, and Straight Outta Compton. Unfortunately, he fell victim to a common cliche. The gang life can come back to hunt you and others around you. Because during a promo shooting for the Straight Outta Compton movie, Sean Knight, also known as Suge Knight, who grew up in a mob-powered neighborhood and was widely known as a Notorious member, allegedly accidentally ran over and killed his friend, Terry Carter, when attempted to run over Bone after they had a fight. These days, Bone is definitely staying out of trouble and still doing his thing in the industry when it comes to acting, being an activist, and helping the young youth in this community stay out of trouble. But that's just one prominent member. They have other members who are known for their violent ways and activities. Yet known killers, dealers, and overall crazy motherfuckers. These guys had all that and much more. But these means of operations from them caught the attention of local law enforcement. The Athens Park Bloods have a reputation for being one of the most dangerous and violent gangs in Los Angeles. In recent years, the gangs become even more ruthless and reckless than ever before. While there's still some members who are smart and very strategic with their movement, a vast majority of the gang's members are young and impulsive, driven by a desire of power, respect, and money. This has led to a rise in violent acts and incidents, including shootings, stabbings, and robberies, as well as an increase in drug dealings and other criminal activities. But it also led to the gang being investigated. In 2009, several police agencies set their sights on the Athens Park Bloods, and an operation dubbed Operation Blood Clot. Operation Blood Clot was a huge hit for the Athens Park Bloods because it targeted the gang and its big-time members. The operation's purpose was to take down the Athens Park Bloods due to sales of narcotics in the streets. It was a multi-agency operation and investigation, with the results of this investigation seeing the arrest of 17 Athens Park members, which included members of the 127th Street Clique. Law enforcement says that the APBs were an extremely organized street gang, which controlled the neighborhood and were known for committing violent crimes such as assaults and murders, and were known for the sales of narcotics and firearms. Saying that the gang didn't have a sole leader, but had multiple senior members who regulate all the gang's activities. Operation Blood Clot's purpose was to take down those members. This operation, it greatly slowed the activities of the Athens Park Bloods. But all that, it was short-lived, because this gang, they were back to their usual activities within a couple years. For example, in December of 2020, Camino Bayet was standing outside an apartment complex when a car pulled up and stopped. 2 men exited the car with guns in hand. Without any words, fired several rounds. One of the rounds struck Bayet in his stomach, unfortunately causing his death. Before being transported to the hospital, he told the officer that the vehicle involved was a gold Nissan sedan. A nearby surveillance camera captured the incident. Recordings showed 2 vehicles, a gold Nissan and a blue Fiat, passing the victim's location 3 times before stopping in front of the apartment complex. On top of that, in January of 2021, a police officer spoke with Norris while he sat in the front passenger seat of a parked Honda. A blue Fiat was parked nearby. Norris told the officer that he owned a Fiat, and his statement was recorded on the officer's body camera and played for the jury. Norris and Chloe McClendon were members of the Athens Park Street Gang. McClendon testified on December 7th of 2020 in a celebration of her Hood Day. He, Norris, and another gang member named Bohart Wilkins and others were chilling at Athens Park and waiting to go to a party. After spending some time at the park, McClendon, Norris, and Wilkins got into McClendon's gold Nissan to go to the party. Wilkins was giving McClendon directions to the party, which included several U-turns when he told McClendon to stop at an apartment building. Wilkins and Norris then jumped out of the car, fired shots, then got back into the car, and McClellan drove away. Another individual named Poo-Poo, who had also been at the park and was following them to the party, was driving a blue Fiat. The Fiat followed the Nissan from the park until it stopped ahead of the Nissan at the site of the shooting. Also, through expert testimony regarding Norris' cell phone location data, the prosecution showed that Norris' cell phone was at Athens Park just before the shooting. It was turned off for about an hour, then it was turned on east of the crime scene in Athens Park. At trial, the prosecution played a recording of a conversation between McClellan and a confidential informant, recorded while the two were in a holding cell after McClellan's arrest. The recording established that McClellan's trial testimony was consistent with his pre-trial statements, and in July 2022, the jury found Norris guilty of conspiracy to commit murder, and the trial court sentenced him to a term of 35 years to life, consisting of 25 years to life for the murder and a 10-year term for the firearm enhancement. Yeah, as you've seen so far, the Athens Park Bloods have a long history of going to war with the East Coast Crips, with several bodies being dropped on both sides. But that's just one enemy compared to a long list of other gangs that fall under that label.
These are all my brothers.
These are not pit bulls. They're not. They're kids.
Allies and rivals of the Athens Park Bloods. The Athens Park Bloods have formed a lot of allies and enemies over the years due to their activities in Los Angeles. They have a long-standing alliance with a couple Bloods. For example, during the 1980s, the Athens Park Bloods formed a close alliance with the Miller Gangster Bloods and the Black Peace Stones out of the jungles and created AMJ, with the alliance representing Athens, Millers, and the jungles. Hence, seeing Bones in the Jungles playing a big role in the film Training Day. And aside from that, these gangs have a long history of being highly involved with each other. They party together, fight together, and often go on missions against other rival gang members with each other. In fact, they made headlines in 2005 committing crimes together. McGee and Green, joined by Portia Hampton and Chauncey Craig, spent the night of July 2nd of 2005 at Green's house. The next morning, Hampton was driving McGee, Green, and Craig to Craig's house when she stopped to pick up her cousin, Ronald Belvin. Belvin, who was dressed in Crips colors, got into the back seat and sat behind Hampton. Green was in the front passenger seat, McGee was behind him, and Craig was in the middle in the back seat between Belvin and McGee. Anyways, as soon as Belvin got in the car, McGee asked him aggressively, "Where you from?" And Belvin answered, "East Coast." Green and McGee, they immediately get agitated. He yells to Belvin, "This Miller's, nigga," referring to the Miller Gangster Bloods. Belvin then said he didn't gangbang and told McGee he hadn't heard of the Millers at all. Green then told Hampton to stop at an apartment complex that was the Miller Gangsters Bloods base of operations, explaining that he wanted to get a sweater. When they arrived, McGee and Green entered the complex, then returned to the car a few minutes later without a sweater. Green then told Hampton to drive to Craig's house, and when they arrived, Green got out of the car and told Belvin, "Homie, catch my fade," meaning that he wanted to fight. But Belvin remained in the car. So McGee, he then pulls out a revolver, put it to Belvin's head, and told him, "Homie, you're gonna catch my fade." Right after that, Belvin starts to freak out and tried to flee, but McGee and Green gave chase. And once they caught him, they kicked him and punched him. Belvin didn't fight back and tried to get up and run away, but Green, who then had the gun, shot Belvin twice from a distance of about 3 feet. Hampton jumped out of the car and tried to take the gun from Green, but he pushed her out the way. Belvin managed to get up and started to climb over to a nearby gate leading to the back of a house. But McGee, he then took the gun from Green, telling him, "Let me get some of this," ran after Belvin and shot him 3 times before he and McGee fled on foot. Sheriff's deputies arrived at the scene to find Belvin still breathing, but sadly, he died at the hospital later that morning. Hampton spoke to the deputies at the scene, and again that afternoon at the station, describing the conversations and the events that played out. At the scene, Hampton said the men were arguing in the car, and that it was Belvin who first asked, "Where you from?" Green and McGee, they were soon arrested following an investigation into the shooting. A gang expert found out the Miller Gangster Bloods, also known as the Athens Miller Gangsters, because the Miller Gangster Bloods had joined forces with the Athens Park Bloods, which together had an ongoing rivalry with the Crips. The primary activities of the Miller Gangster Bloods, which has about 48 members, are robberies, narcotic sales, and assaults on rival gang members. In addition, he testified about the gang's concept of respect and the commission of violent crimes to instill fear in the community. And ultimately, a jury convicted Green and McGee for the murder of Ronald Belvin. Green and McGee were both sentenced to a state prison term for a total of 50 years to life. Definitely rest in peace to Ronald Belvin. He thought he was getting in the car with some females he knew, and unfortunately, he wasn't aware of his environment, as well as the people who was around, which led to his demise. That's only one of the situations that this alliance is known for. They're also known for a lot with other Bloods as well, like the Denver Lane Bloods. This alliance is often referred as Athens Lanes, which was established in around 1986 to 87 due to the gang's close relationship with each other. That's pretty much it. But they go to war with a lot of gangs. Their main rivals are the Raymond Avenue Crips, and they have some lesser known beefs, such as their beef with the Bounty Hunter Watts Bloods, the PJ Watts Crips, the Front Hood Compton Crips, the Payback Crips, and most other Compton Crip gangs. But their biggest rivalry has always been with the East Coast Crips, particularly the 11-8 East Coast Block Crips. Yeah, this war, it goes back over 4 decades, with the Athens Park Bloods been involved in numerous clashes with the East Coast Crips, resulting in numerous members on both sides being killed or incarcerated, with the sad situation making headlines in the early 1990s.
14-month-old Michelle Jones is the youngest to die. She and her family were in their own driveway on their way inside their Willowbrook home. Somebody drove by and fired a gun.
Shortly after 7 p.m. on Sunday of July 7th, 1991, Katie Jones and her 14-month-old daughter, Michelle, arrived at their home in the Willowbrook area of Los Angeles, California. Kaylee and Michelle lived in the house with Katie's mother, and at the time, Katie's brothers, John Paul and Albert, were in the front yard. Katie parked her car on the street in front of the house. She put Michelle on the sidewalk and began to unload the trunk as Albert came to help out. He lifted Michelle over the fence, separating the front yard from the street, and handed her to John Paul and set Michelle down so she could walk into the house. And as he did that, John Paul saw a blue Jeep Cherokee with 3 African-American men in the car, turning to the street with loud music playing. The car approached slowly with the windows down. The man sitting behind the driver was light-skinned, had a dry, jerry curl hairstyle, and his ears poked out from his head. John Paul later identified this man as Sean Romaine Yoakley. Yoakley then pushed his arms and upper bodies through the window, and while holding a firearm with both hands out in front of him, begins firing multiple shots at the house. Albert was shot in the shoulder and fell to the sidewalk bleeding. As Katie went towards him, she was hitting the left leg and above the knee. John Paul ran towards Michelle, but he fell when a bullet struck him in the right leg and shattered his femur. But he still crawled towards Michelle, who was laying on her back in the yard. Michelle had been shot in the face. She was conscious, but slowly passing. He then covers her with his body so Katie couldn't see what happened. And sadly, before help arrived, Michelle died at the scene.
Little girl died at the hospital. Her parents and an uncle are still there recovering from their wound.
Police found a blue Cherokee the next day. The vehicle was traced to Wyson, who soon implicated Yoakley. Police then asked Yoakley to come to the police station voluntarily for questioning, and he agreed. As the deputy sheriff transported Yoakley to the station, Yoakley told the deputy that he was a former member of the 11-8 East Coast Crips, known by the gang moniker Cowboy. And as already stated, the East Coast Crips were deadly rivals of the Athens Park Bloods. Anyways, when interviewed by police, Yokley stated that on the day of the murder, he had been at a motel on Western Avenue with the girl who was visiting the area from Arizona. But the police, they checked the registration records of the motel and were unable to verify Yokley's alibi. And on top of that, the detectives were able to get some important statements from someone who was in the car during the shooting. In July 1991, Vernon Cox was 15 years old. Cox formerly was an associate of the Home Street Watts Crip gang. Cops had a friend named Rance Hall who lived in an apartment near 125th Street and Western Avenue, approximately 2 miles from the Jones residence. And on July 7th, Cox went to visit Hill. And when he got there, he found Hill leaving his apartment building in a blue Jeep Cherokee, driven by Daryl Whitson. Whitson was a member of the 11-8 East Coast Crips with the gang moniker Lil D. Cox joined Hill and Whitson in a Jeep as the 3 young men drank Hennessy, beer, and smoked marijuana at various locations before returning to Hill's apartment. But soon after that, Hill asked Cox and Whitson to leave the apartment for a while so that he could be alone with the girl. So Cox and Whitson went to the Cherokee, and Whitson drove Cox east into the territory controlled by the East Coast Crips. When Whitson saw a friend of his and stopped the Cherokee, Cox identified Whitson's friend as Yokley. Whitson and Yokley talked for a minute, and Yokley asked Whitson what he was about to do. Whitson then answered that they were going to roll around to see if they could find some bloods. So Yokley, he said he wanted to come along. Prior to that, Yokley ran towards the house, and when he came back, he appeared to be holding something in his waistband as he got in the back of the Cherokee. Whitson, he then drove south into territory controlled by the Athens Park Bloods. And after a few minutes, the Cherokee turned left into the street where Joneses lived. Cox saw 2 men standing near the second house on the block. And as they drove past the house, Cox saw Yokley leaning out of the driver's window of the Cherokee, holding a black gun in both hands, followed by him hearing several gunshots, and 10 men fall on the ground immediately after. The men then sped off and dropped Yokley off near where they picked him up. Yokley then said he was going to go get the rest of his bullets for the gun, but Whitson and Cox, they didn't wait for him. Instead, they drove back to Hill's apartment building. 2 months later, the police came to Cox's home to interview him about the shooting, and he cooperated. Cox identified Whitson as the driver of the Jeep from a photo lineup. He then identified Yokley as the shooter from a photo lineup, although he told police he was not 100% sure. But Cox did say that the picture looked like the shooter. He explained that at the time, he didn't know Yokley, and he didn't know what might happen to him if he identified Yokley, but he tried his best to do what he thought was right. Cox testified that he also identified Yokley as a shooter at a corporate sit-in in 1992, and he was granted immunity in exchange for his testimony. And ultimately, Sean Romain Yokley was convicted of murder in 1992 and sentenced to 4 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole. Man, that one was intense. I don't care if it's 4 decades ago, before that, or even today. When an innocent person, especially a kid, loses their life in such a bullshit way, shit just don't sit right with my soul. I spilled the details of how Michelle Jones died, but nobody deserves to die like that. Rest in peace to that beautiful baby girl. That situation, it played out in the 1990s. But before that, and even up until today, the Athens Park Bloods and the East Coast Crips have been deadly rivals with each other. And that unfortunate situation was only one of many between these 2 gangs. This is because their beef goes way back before the formation of these gangs. But is there any OGs or anyone tapped into the street who can let me know the main source of this war? Y'all let me know in the comments. Either way, the Athens Park Bloods have had more than a few prominent members who are frontline for the gang and made a lot of noise while doing so.
Just don't let the Daryl Gates and Bradley fool you and talking about these are thugs doing this. You see that on the tapes, you know, these people don't look like thugs, they're like family. They're going in with their whole families. And as far as the gang situation, we can give a damn about looting and burning. That's not our thing, you know?
Our thing is straight up against the pigs.
Yeah.
Prominent figures. The Athens Park Bloods have had more than a few members from the gang who have made them one of the most feared and respected in the city. But I also found a long list of members who are no longer with us. A few of them include Bowman, Chizo, D-Loco, Lil Deuce Time, Baby Faze, Hot Link, Armin Davis, also known as Iceman, who was shot and killed in the Nickerson Garden housing projects. It's also Slim Gotti, Cyclone, Psycho Mouse, Tyrell, also known as G-Twin, Ruzel, Mickey Fountain, and Bai Chow Howard, also known as Vicious Vaz, who was killed as a result of a chokehold by the LAPD while in custody for DUI. The city paid his family $2.5 million in June of 2015 as a part of a settlement. In addition is G-Twin, the son of one of the founders of the Athens Park Bloods, who was featured in the Dead Homies documentary, who was shot to death in a Pocket Hood Compton Crips territory. Definitely rest in peace to all of them, and y'all let me know in the comments of any of the members who are no longer with us. Let their names live on. The Athens Park Bloods also have a long list of members who put in a lot of work for the gang. A few of them include Cree, Bobo, Maurice, Thomas Speed, and Davion McKinley. And they also have a couple members who have had some success in the industry as well. As already mentioned, is Bones, who is an American activist, actor, and documentary director from Los Angeles, California, who's done a lot of good for his community. Because while still a member of the Athens Park Bloods, Bones worked to reform gang culture and put an end to gang violence from the inside. Aside from being an activist, he also appeared in several movies such as Training Day, Tears of the Sun, Brooklyn's Finest, and directed the Bastards of the Party documentary. In addition, it's also rapper Hooded John, who was featured in Mitchie Slick music video, Won't Stop Being a Blood, and it's also RJ. Yeah, bro's been dropping fire for LA and beyond for over a decade. And at this point, he's one of my favorite artists coming out of LA. Hey, y'all remember this? Ooh, I'ma get rich on you. I'ma be richer than you. I'ma get rich like, ooh. Nah, he first came into the rap scene with YG, but immediately stood his own, dropping numerous local classics and hits. And he made a lot of noise in the city when he went head-to-head with artist 03 Greedo in a music battle, which ultimately was a great look for Los Angeles, showing that gangs from different sections can keep Rivalry strictly music and do some good business together. Anyways, y'all definitely tap in if you're not familiar with his music. Y'all won't be disappointed. Also, it's Seti Mac and Earl Swavey, who was a rapper from Athens Miller. Unfortunately, Swavey was killed when he pulled up to the East Coast Crips territory and allegedly shot some East Coast Crips during their Hood Day function. They shot back, hitting him, and he died in surgery.
The situation in LA has been volatile for
But see, that would have been the uplift of the people. Finally, they caught the guys with their hand in the cookie jar.
That's right.
So we figured they're gonna prosecute and they got them.
And we can feel that justice is working for us in our community, which it hasn't. It never has.
Current state of the Athens Park Bloods. The Athens Park Bloods have been active since the 1970s. And in Los Angeles, a lot of gangs aren't here today. Due to gang wars, gentrification, gang injunctions, deaths, and members being locked up. But this gang survived all that and remained to be one of the more active gangs in Los Angeles. This gang has also grown to the point so we can find them in different states like New York, Tennessee, and Virginia. But y'all let me know if they have a presence in any other state. Anyways, that's it for the Athens Park Bloods. You got any crazy stories about these guys? Any close calls? Did I miss something? Did I get something wrong? Y'all let me know in the comments. Let's have a conversation about it. Also, if you guys like this video and you're also interested in my shorter format videos as well, then you definitely gotta tap into the CALI'S Most Dangerous Short Stories channel, where I'll be posting shorter stories and breaking down these longer videos just in case you guys missed anything in between or weren't able to finish the whole video. So make sure you guys subscribe ASAP. The support is truly appreciated. Anyways, don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video or if you're part of the Danger Gang. Y'all stay safe and dangerous out there.